Hey guys, I'm Nick and welcome back to the channel. Well, I'm struggling through COVID at the moment, so forgive me if I'm a little bit hoarse, but I'm going to persevere and try to get this week's review out for you guys. We're talking about episode 3 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which is entitled Ghosts of Illyria. This was an okay episode. It wasn't, I think, the best of the Strange New Worlds episodes we've had so far this season. Probably, I think, episodes 1 and 2 were a little bit stronger, but we got a big reveal in this episode about number 1 and her history. And it's probably apt that I have COVID this week because this episode was essentially COVID homage episode where all the crew got sick. We had everybody going into lockdown on board the ship. Everyone's coming into contact with people who've caught this virus. So, it's apt that I guess I am also suffering this week. So, let's get into my breakdown and review this week of Ghosts of Illyria, Strange New Worlds, Episode 3. So first, I want to say, we knew there was a big reveal coming for number 1. It's been going back to press conferences and things that Rebecca Romaine has been talking about since fairly early on in the show's development. And there's a lot of speculation going around. Even I put a video out thinking, well, is there a connection to a historical character? Initially, I thought maybe she was going to turn out to be related to T'Pol, for example. But the big revelation in this episode was the fact that number 1 turned out to be an Illyrian, and she was also a genetically engineered augment. To me, this seems like a bit of a double up. We've already got Lan Noonien Singh with the historic backstory of being related to Khan Noonien Singh. So she ticks that box in terms of augment history. So this seemed like a bit of an unusual development. Firstly, because we'd seen the Illyrians before in Star Trek Enterprise, and the Illyrians don't look like humans. Their makeup was quite different. So for number 1 to say she's an Illyrian, firstly I'm saying, well, you don't look like an Illyrian. We've seen Illyrians before in Star Trek Enterprise, and number 1 does not look like an Illyrian. The whole genetic modification thing and her being an augment just seemed like a double up. Why do we need another augment when we already have Lan Noonien Singh as part of the cast? Any storylines that needed to come up involving Khan history or augment history would have been better looked at through the lens of the character of Lan. So why we needed number 1 to be the same, I'm not sure why. This big reveal that we've been leading up to for months and months and months, I was a bit disappointed and a bit underwhelmed. Now, we had the episode kind of split into 2 parts. We had stuff that was going on board the Enterprise with number 1 and the rest of the crew, and we also had what was going on with Spock and Pike on the planet. The stuff on board the ship, I thought that was kind of interesting. We had the stuff going on with all the different crazy crew members smashing their heads through glass windows, and I enjoyed Hemmer. Hemmer was really good in this episode. He's got that really gruff sensibility about him. He can derive a bit of humour from the character through his straight and gruff persona. We also had quite a bit of stuff in sickbay with Dr. Mbenga. I got to say, I kind of struggled a few times in this episode to understand some of the dialogue from Dr. Mbenga. He's got quite a husky voice and quite a pronounced accent, which can be difficult to understand at times. Everybody's got something to hide in terms of him. The whole reason the virus spread is because it went through the medical transporter. He's got his daughter in the buffer because she's sick, and I guess he pulls her out of the transporter buffer from time to time to read her bedtime stories, which sort of seems a little bit, a bit strange. I think, I get where he's coming from, but at the same time, it's a little bit odd behaviour. And not something you'd expect from the Chief Medical Officer. You'd expect him to be more rational. And also, I thought that transporter patterns would degrade after a certain amount of time whilst held in the buffer. They couldn't be held there indefinitely. But first and foremost, this episode was kind of the COVID pandemic homage episode, I guess you'd say, with, crew members all getting infected, sickbay flooded and overflowing with medical cases, people, spreading it to other crew members, number 1 putting the ship into lockdown, all things we've experienced in the last couple of years. It felt a little bit like in this episode that Pike and Spock didn't have all that much to do in this episode. They were just sort of hanging out in that archive library, just waiting out the storm. Yes, there was a few bits and moments with those energy ghosts or creatures or whatever that sort of protected them, and it wasn't that big a deal in this episode, I thought. And I think maybe Pike and Spock moments here could have been made a little bit more interesting. I also thought this episode kind of wrapped up the virus quite quickly. I think the fact that there was some weird thing that went on with, number 1, having a fight with Lan in engineering, and then somehow something got passed from, they sort of didn't really explain it all that well. Something passed in terms of from number 1 to Lan, and then number 1 extracted some kind of antidote from Lan as a result. It was a little bit muddled, a little bit unclear, I felt, and it also seemed to be a little bit of a get out of jail free card in terms of the whole solution of this episode. Sort of like everybody was sick, it was going downhill, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, we've got the cure and everyone's fixed again. And I thought this sort of resolved itself a little bit too easily. I thought it was sort of like a bit of a quick and fast explanation. All in all, I didn't mind this episode. I didn't love this episode. I didn't hate this episode. It was okay. There was a few little plot holes here and there. I enjoyed the stuff with Hemmer,
and we did get a really good look at the engineering set. I think the 3D set extensions and the AR wall technology they're using to make engineering look expansive and, you know, quite impressive is a really big step up in terms of what we've been able to see in engineering sections of starships in the past. It was funny seeing number 1 carrying Hemmer from the transporter room where he was trying to open a sun of some description there into the ship so he could bathe in its rays or whatever, and obviously she stunned him and then had to carry him to sickbay. And it was sort of quite obvious when number 1 was carrying Hemmer that it was just like a puppet rag doll, because the legs and the butt and everything didn't look quite right at all, I thought. It was a little bit unusual, but anyway. But Hemmer is a great character, and I really look forward to seeing more scenes with him in the show in the future.
I think it was a nice COVID homage episode, but I was disappointed by the reveal of number 1. The fact that we've been waiting for this reveal to happen for quite some time. I think it was a little bit of a underwhelming reveal, particularly when we already have a character on the show with augment history. Why do we need another one? Well, guys, thanks for watching. Apologies for my flat state at the moment. Getting over COVID this week, so I've got another 5 days or so in ISO while I shake it off. Hopefully, it doesn't get too much worse. But appreciate all your support and all your lovely words of support and kindness in the community section. They've been very uplifting. So I thank everybody for those very kind comments of get well. So thank you very much. Guys, leave a super thanks if you're able to. It really helps the channel out. Much appreciated. Leave a like and a comment. And please subscribe if you haven't already done so. And again, check out my merch in the merch store, where you can pick up all my Star Trek merchandise and everything, which really helps support the channel, and you can pick yourself up a great bargain in the process. I'll be back again with my next video. Hopefully I'm feeling a little bit better by then. I'll catch you guys soon.